What's up, guys? Rae Reinhartz, Chaos Astrologer. I'm on a roll, so I'm just going to continue. I looked to see what would be the next major transit to discuss, and I concluded that that would be the change from Saturn being in Capricorn to Aquarius, which we're just shy of 2 months and 10 days from that transpiring, and so I felt like that was an important topic that I could bring up. So Saturn in Aquarius, it begins the 22nd of March 2020, and it'll stay in Aquarius until March 7th, 2023, and Aquarius is in dignity for Saturn, just as well as Capricorn, because in medieval or ancient astrology, before Uranus was discovered, Saturn ruled Capricorn as well as Aquarius. So the only difference would be is that Aquarius is fixed, Capricorn is cardinal. So fixed is more stubborn, stuck in its ways, and permanent, as opposed to Capricorn, which is cardinal and can be active or adaptable in to certain extents. So it's going to be like the Capricorn, very powerful, but a little bit more stubborn. The last time that Saturn was in Aquarius, it was between February 1991 to January 1994. The overall sociological themes or global themes was a lot of chaos, disharmony, unconventional actions, collectively riots. There's like the Gulf War going on and all kinds of other things that there was a lot of uncooperation or uncooperative energy going on, rejection of traditional established rules and order, and there were some innovations with technology and medical breakthroughs. That's when the introduction to the World Wide Web came up. That's when they started developing cures for cancer and those sorts of things. So there's some good things and there's also some bad things in that regard, because Aquarius is supposed to be innovative and reaching beyond the status quo and finding new ways and pioneering ways to basically address stagnant problems, etc., etc. So Saturn in Aquarius, or the 11th house, because you can interchange those symbolically, will limit or restrict sociological institutions, larger organizations, group and collective actions. So anything that's, bureaucracies and big scale organizations are going to be rejected, and people aren't people on a local level are not going to want to be dealing with federal bureaucrats, or the UN, I've said over and over again, is going to be something that's going to completely be dismantled at some point, and this is definitely going to contribute to that as well. So there will be a significant distrust and skepticism for the necessity of, or the existence of bureaucracies, corporations, and groups and organizations that aren't helping anybody. So any organizations or anything big that actually demonstrates that not only are they not helping or supporting people, the average everyday person, but they're contributing to the corruption and contributing to, the negative impacts of everyday life, they're going to be the ones rejected and shut down sooner rather than later. Saturn in Aquarius is redefining the status quo, breaking out of traditional structures, and rebelling against stagnation. Saturn in Aquarius brings change, but shouldn't feel as unpredictable or as intangible as an example for with the impact of Uranus square Pluto. So that's because Uranus was in a cardinal sign with Aries, and Pluto was obviously still in a cardinal sign because it's in Capricorn. So there was a lot of crazy, unpredictable change going on because of Uranus, but it was typically things that have never been seen before, or new problems and new situations that were interjected into the environment as it was. Because this is fixed, this will be more of a steadfast, consistent rebelliousness, as opposed to just being some spontaneous surprise that nobody saw coming. So with this being a fixed sub-period, because Saturn's the timekeeper, remember, this 3 years with Saturn being in Aquarius essentially manifests symbolically as the harvest time after the mutable and cardinal years. So mutable brought, instability, uncertainty. That was before, that was like in 2014, 2015, and then in 2016, and then 2017 is when we went into cardinal. So mutable, and then it was action. It's action right now. Now we're about to go into a permanency kind of vibe with this fixed subperiod. So it also will solidify all extreme changes, that Saturn is all about manifesting energy into the real world. So all of the sociological effects of the Uranus-Pluto square, specifically the chaos that ensued, will now begin to come to fruition. So there's been a lot of instability, a lot of, falls with empires or whatever. I mean, the Iran thing's in progress is happening. That's another example. And like the Brexit thing, and there's all kinds of other things, Venezuela, etc., etc. There's a lot of instability that's been going on, and now the vacuum that was caused, more or less symbolically, by the Uranus-Pluto square, the permanent solution or thing that replaces the void is now going to manifest during this Saturn Aquarius phase. So in evolutionary astrology theory, they use Saturn or Aquarius or the 11th house as a trauma signature. I don't always delve into the evolutionary astrology thing, especially since Stephen Forrest is really out there. I'm not a huge fan, actually, of a lot of the evolutionary astrologers, but I do agree with Mark Jones to a certain extent. And the Uranus trauma signature formula that he uses works. So I use it. So seeing Uranus or Aquarius or the 11th house as a trauma signature, using that perspective, and translates to trauma signature with the established order, government, organizations, etc. So Saturn represents authority, organizations, government, politicians, those sorts of things, bureaucracies, bank institutions, etc., etc. And with it going into the sign of Aquarius would mean that there's going to be some traumatic events that happen to those, or some not so fortunate scenarios that end up causing a lot of chaos or problems for them, likely leading to their dismantling or complete destruction in general, which again is something I already reiterated. I can't ever say that word. Whatever. That I already elaborated on. There we go. So, as Saturn is going into Aquarius, it will square Uranus at 4 degrees of Taurus, by the way, when this happens on the 22nd of March this year, further magnifying chaotic themes. This will also manifest financially as well, or with the financial institutions. I have mentioned before, like the banks and all that sort of thing. Or funding being lost for government organizations, etc., etc. Because Uranus and Taurus is infamous for financial instability, financial problems, and in United States history, specifically the 1930s Great Depression, was signified by a Uranus and Taurus transit. So, if I were to equate this transit to one symbolic event, it would be the fall of the Tower of Babel. Just in all forms like that. Anything that's a big bad tower, anything that's this huge traditional symbols of authority and power is just going to completely be eaten away and eroded by its own bullshit, primarily. And people just getting tired of being jerked around, and yeah. So for the USA, towards the end of this sub-period, Saturn will conjunct the USA's moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So take all this chaotic energy, this rejecting the status quo, this wanting to change everything, the riots, uncooperative kind of behavior, trauma signatures on government and big elite establishments, and then have the moon for the United States conjunct that, which is the attitude, mentality, and feelings of the people in general. So, and then another thing is that Pluto will be 1 degree away from an exact conjunction from the Pluto in Capricorn in the United States natal chart. So while Saturn comes to conjunct the moon, the Aquarius moon, that makes the fighting spirit and the rebelliousness of the American, attitude and everything, the essence of what the founding fathers were all about, rejecting the status quo, rejecting the system, doing their own thing, being independent, not having big government, etc., etc. That is going to be awakened more than ever by this, activated by this transit. And Pluto being 1 degree away from an exact conjunction just reiterates that theme and that happening. So it's going to be really nuts and it's going to definitely be out with the old and in with the new, or else It'll end up being an or else in this country, because that's exactly what happened 30 plus years ago. Is that it will be freedom and our way, and however we want to do it, or else. And the or else was we shot down the British and told them to get the out. That's exactly what's going to happen. That kind of stuff is already escalating, and it's not even Saturn being in Aquarius yet. With, for example, the legislators in Virginia and them threatening gun confiscation. And you saw instantly the reaction or the response to them even insinuating gun confiscation was they made all the counties throughout Virginia Second Amendment sanctuary cities, and there's militias already, in the works and being built up. And I mean, there's always been some people like that, like the Oath Keepers and stuff, but there's like a mainstream narrative going on. I want to say mainstream, I mean like on a social media. Facebook is mainstream, even though it's not like, the broadcasting mainstream. Because only certain things are allowed to be on Facebook. Things that you can't say you go to 4chan or whatever for. But there's even posts on Facebook about militias getting together. So there's a large scale of revolt already happening just at the very uttering the word that we're going to do gun confiscation. And that's going to happen everywhere too. So it will be the out with the old or else. It'll be we're going to end all this bullshit, the bureaucracy, the abuse of authority with the deep state and with the people who want big state and big government, which is the Democratic or liberal leftist side of the spectrum, or else. They're either going to back off and realize that the citizens run this country and they're tired of, having the wool pulled over their eyes and distracted, and they actually are paying attention now. Which, that's actually all the government's fault, by the way. They were so keen on obsessing the identity politics and getting so many people to hate Trump that they made all their talking points, everything in reality TV, talk shows, Hollywood, movies, Twitter, everything that everybody was distracted with prior to this, where they didn't watch C-SPAN, where they didn't pay attention to legislation, where they didn't pay attention to what politicians were doing, that nobody cared to vote, because they made everybody care so they could vote against Trump. Now everybody pays attention. And now all the slip-ups and all the cover-ups that they did a piss-poor job of doing are now completely out in the open and in the spotlight for everybody to see. And there's only going to be really, really stupid people, or people that are benefiting from all the corruption and bribery, that will actually stick with the status quo and the bullshit that's been perpetuated for a long time. So this transit is just going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts. Again, the Pluto and Capricorn thing's just going to continue to contribute to this. It'll be insane. It'll be nuts. As for on an individual level, this transit will be most challenging for anyone who is an Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, or Scorpio. You can apply that to any planet aspects in your chart if you want to. Say, for example, you're a heavy, let's say, it could be your rising, it could be your sun, or you have a stellium that has the moon involved or something like that, and you're a water sign, and what your moon sign is in one of those signs, you can attribute it to that as well. You just basically attribute it to however that manifests in your chart or whatever. So transit must be challenging. So if you had a moon in one of those signs, that means that you're going to have an emotional turmoil or issues going on like that. But again, it doesn't say that it's malefic, it's just challenging. For earned rewards or reaping the potential rewards of past efforts, for anybody who's Libra and Gemini, again, that could be your sun sign, your rising, primarily. Could also apply to your North Node as well. There's that. North Node would actually be a good one for applying any of these. Then the opportunities for potential opportunities or good fortune could arise for Sagittarius and Aries. And again, can apply to your sun, rising, North Node, whatever you want to do, whatever's clever. So that is the gist of Saturn in Aquarius. I'll obviously address any kind of other major aspects or transits that will be happening while Saturn is in Aquarius as those times come. Other than that, yeah, pretty much it. If you have any further questions, if you want to discuss this, if you have any ideas or anything like that that you'd like to, interject, feel free to talk to me in the comments below. And anybody who was born between 1991 to 1994, brace yourselves. This is your Saturn return coming up. Saturn return, ooh, it's gonna be nuts. It's gonna be, yeah, especially with that whole, Uranus squaring Saturn when it starts. Very interesting. It'll be very interesting. So if you need some guidance, help, or if you'd like a reading or a report, hit me up. I'll help you out. Otherwise, good luck, guys. See ya.